Hello, everyone. We're just warming up for our next conversations around finding the middle voice. My name is Mai Vu Coach, and I am with a dear friend. Her name is Sher, her wholeness coach. I specialize in relationship, helping you build a fabulous relationship that you are loved, adored, and cherished wherever you go in the world. And I enrolled my friend M into this series of conversation because we found that I believe that this is a very important practice, is how do we learn to speak to each other when we are on complete opposite side of perspective around a few of the things that is important in our world right now, like vaccination, mask, oh my god, this and from there it opened up to a whole new world. And Em and I, this is our third conversation. uh the first one we were just even starting to talk about, the healing between how to cure ourselves once you get COVID, like Regeneron versus ivermectin and that kind of natural holistic self. And then the second conversation we had, we barely touched, which was this whole rise of Nazism and uh, so much there. And today we're looking at the pain that both sides have, you and me, have lived through, continue to live through. The As I think about this, I have a running argument with my mother in my head um, around a few things. Um, so that's my doorway to accessing my pain of what it's been like in our divisive world. And so Em and I are not trying to convince each other because we admit that we can't convince each other on our perspective, but we can only practice being at the table together and learning to listen and learning to understand where the other person is coming from. And what I've learned as I been engaging this with you, is that we actually we are developing a middle voice. I'm calling it the middle voice, because there's a common ground in here that is starting to emerge for me, so I can see, and I'm developing language, words, expression to talk and to find this middle ground. And I believe that this is an important practice that we all need to do with each other if we're going to save our country. So for me, it's much bigger than just being right about how I see things. But for me, it's about finding a way to create a healing conversation, healing relationships, so that we can continue to be a united state of America versus a divided state of America. So that's what's in it for me. How about you, Em?
Well, I think that's a place where we have a middle ground, because me too. Yeah.
Say more.
This conversation to me is really important because I'm dealing with a similar thing as to what I heard you say about hearing the voice of your mother in your head. And I too am hearing the voice of my mother in my head, and all the things that she said to me and all the things she hasn't said to me. And the judgments of my choices. And her trying to find a middle ground of acceptance, and yet it doesn't actually feel like it. So at least here we have a place where it can feel like it, and we can practice what it feels like, as well as how do we speak, how do we communicate in ways that each of us can be heard and validated where we are.
Yep. Despite all the noises in my head.
Exactly.
But you're wrong. No. And I believe that it's an important process to identify what's going on inside my own head as I'm listening to you or anyone else, and tending to that so that I can find that middle ground, that respect. Really, in this middle ground, in this middle voice, there's respect for the other person, and it's so important. So let's go deeper. What's it been like? Uh, so one is respect, and the other one is a really important skill called asking the other person, like listening to the other person, right? So let's start. What's been like for you to live through this last 2 years, or right? Believing what you believe, listening and reading what you have been listening and reading to, and then having to take a stand for what is your stand? I don't want to assume.
I was actually writing a little bit about this last night, and actually doing another video about my beliefs around what is liberty. So I'm coming back to the Constitution and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And what does liberty mean? We know what life means. We know what the pursuit of happiness means. But what does liberty actually mean? And liberty actually is equated to freedom. And so I looked it up in the dictionary, and I think the thing that's upsetting me more than anything in the world is that I feel as though liberties are being infringed upon, our freedoms as individuals, and being told what to do by family, communities, jobs, the government. So I think that's my biggest point of contention. Like, you get to believe what you want to believe, and I honor you there. And I get to believe what I want and believe, want and need to believe, and I want to honor me there and be honored here. And so I think that for me is the biggest point of contention.
Yeah, so that is the biggest pain, and I think this is where it gets so crazy, is that we want the same thing. You want freedom and liberty, and I want freedom and liberty. And between the two of us, I even got on a freaking boat when I was 12 years old, crossed the fucking Pacific Ocean, almost died so that I can achieve the freedom that America has. So if there's one person that really care about liberty and have lived it over and over and over again, since then I left my country, I left my corporate America job, I even left my marriage to find my own personal liberty. So I know what you stand for and fight for. I do too, right? So this is when it's so crazy. It's like the middle voice, the middle ground is we both want this, but then the interpretation is so opposite. And it's just like, oh my God, how can two people want, this is like a bad marriage. How can two people want the same thing and end up fighting, which is so painful. So to me, that's one of the pain, is we want the same thing, and yet your perspective and my perspective of what is happening are so complete opposite.
Yes.
So then we end up drifting apart instead of finding that commonality, finding that union between us.
Well, I think that's
So
what we're here to do. And I'm curious what your perspective is that's so vastly different than mine.
Yeah, so I stand for liberty too, and part of liberty and freedom is that I am at choice to put my mask on or not, but I choose to put it on to protect myself and to stop this pandemic from going. I choose to get vaccinated, not because I'm 100% crazy about it. I really am not 100% crazy about it. But I've seen enough and I hear enough that 60%, I'm going to give it a really low number, 60% truth that vaccination help reduce the infection rate and help get rid of it. Therefore, I freely subject myself to be vaccinated if I could help, if I could be a part of that. So that to me is how I use my freedom. And so that's where it's opposite, is that because I'm free, that's why I chose to put a mask on, and that's why I chose to get vaccinated. And for you, it's like, what's your stand? Because you're free, therefore you won't.
Well, I'm free, and in my freedom of choice, I think back to my great grandfather who had a ready to wear dress factory, who had maids and a Mercedes in the 30s, and who opted to walk away from all of that to come to America to flee Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
So he made a choice that was against the mainstream at that time. And I feel like my stand is aligned with his stand. And obviously, he's not here to have that discussion. And I feel like there's not enough research. I'm hearing all sort of mixed things about the vaccine. Yes, it helps in some instances. And I'm also hearing that many people that are in the hospitals with COVID actually have been vaccinated. In places like Israel, where the majority of the people have been vaccinated, also the majority of the people in the hospitals with COVID are also vaccinated. So it hasn't prevented them from going to the hospital. So, and then there's the whole other thing about graphene oxide and mRNA and things that change our biology. So those are questions. And because they're questions and I don't have clear answers, I'm unwilling to do this thing. And
Yeah.
is it right or is it wrong? I don't know. Yes, I absolutely want to help society and my people. We're aligned there. And my approach is vastly different.
Yeah, and I, like I said, I totally get where you're from, because I do get that what I do get, and I have lived in this world that you're in, which is, you know, the whole point of speaking up for you is to really protect our health, to find healthier, less invasive, less intrusive, less damaging alternative to living a healthy life. That's what's so crazy, right?
Yes.
And it's like, I totally get where you're
Yes.
from, and I have been in that place too. And I mean, like, my partner and I, we have been trying to heal his prostate cancer for the last 3 years, and the journey continue. And in the first 2 years, we were determined to do it the healthy ways. We had every, we didn't take the things that insurance paid for, because we were bought into this belief that in medical industry, destroy your body is not really for you, but for profit. And so we wanted to heal it with holistic food. We want to heal it with holistic treatments. We drove we flew to Vietnam. We drove to San Diego. I mean, like, we really did the healthy route. We had vitamin infusion, Greek biological test that, like everything that you could name, we did it. We spent close to $200,000 to try to heal his prostate cancer. And you know what I found out? Well, it does make your body healthier in some sense, but it does not cure cancer. And um, and it's an industry that is very expensive, and it's about the money. The health and holistic industry is just as profit oriented as the other side. It's just that one is taking from the other of the money. Meanwhile, we're the patient, that we're in the middle of this thing. And so I can stand in the middle ground very clearly, because I get that holistic healing is not 100% either, and I get that Western healing is not 100% either. That's why I can hold both and said, yeah, okay, my job then is to get vaccinated, fit on this side, and to eat really healthy on the other side, and exercise, put really nutritious food, watch out for sugar laden food. Oh my God, that's just like the hardest thing. So for me, that's how I find peace, and um find the middle ground to hold both sides. And I totally hear you about you feeling pressure by society to be vaccinated, to have to do it our ways, or your way is wrong. And I'm trying to understand that, because there's there's a difference. There's a very subtle difference. Like, I hear the seatbelt conversation get compared to this, right? We've driven enough that to know that when you're in a car, you should put on a seatbelt. It actually saves your life. Does it do it 100% of the time? No. Does it protect you from dying? Absolutely not. But has it helped a lot of people from injury that they didn't have? Yes, it
Absolutely.
has.
Or
So
death.
that's good enough, right?
Right.
And so it became a law. And when they passed that law, there was a lot of people who said, don't infringe upon my right. I get the right to. It's true. If that's the case, and you are in an accident and you didn't have a seatbelt on, we don't have to go and help and take care of you, because you chose to just fling yourself around. That's not the case. We have to use resources to help heal you in a car accident. The same thing with this vaccine stuff. It's like, I know it's not 100% truth on either side. I totally get that. And I do know that it's beyond America. This is a world problem. This is a pandemic. And I've been following Vietnam, watching them, and they went through the third round horribly. The first couple rounds, they shut down, put masks on everyone, locked everyone in the house. There's no way in hell we could do that in this country. That is losing your freedom. But they are willing to give that up so that they can together end the pandemic. In this country, we refuse to do that. We refuse to everybody to really sit at home and isolate ourselves. We still go out there and keep generating germs and keep passing it on and keep mutating. So liberty is a funny thing, right? And it goes all the way to liberty to burn the flag. That's huge. The ability to burn the flag is huge. And I know a lot of people who are into liberty get really upset if somebody burned the flag, because they think that is non-patriotic. And I'm just like, no, you missed the point. That's what liberty is. So it's such a it's so complicated
It
in
is.
this understanding and how we exercise our right to be free.
You are correct. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I appreciate your stand and your middle ground. I actually feel like you're in a really beautiful place with it, and I still feel torn. Frankly,
Yeah.
I feel. I mean, I have many, many friends who are stand. I'm not doing the vaccine. I'm not doing the thing, and then they've done it. And I have one of my close friends, and she said, "I did it, and I feel so much better." And for her, her feel better was around the family pressures, and she no longer has the family pressures. So I know for me, if I did it, the family pressures would be gone, and I would have a battle inside of myself, because there's no part of me that wants this thing except the part to pacify family and a piece of society too. So if I do it, then I'm going to have to live with, I've now gone against what I know to be true inside of me. And what I've learned about listening to myself as a practice, learning to listen from the inside out. When everything aligns, it's a clean, clear yes, and I can move forward. And if there's any hesitation at all, it's a no. I'm still in that place where there's hesitation and it's a no. So if I do it, then I'm going against that. And that's what I know to be true as my compass. So
Yeah.
how do I find peace in myself if I go against that thing that I know to be true, that I've learned is my truth and my guide, my map through life.
Yeah.
So that's the place that I stand. And there is a huge amount of pain. If we talk about the pain, it's like, I don't want to be in battle with my family. That's the last thing I want. I moved to Denver because the majority of my family is here. And now there's conflict. And I'm the one creating the conflict in the family by my choice, because I'm the only one in the family that's not vaccinated. And so I have one other daughter who's not vaccinated, but she lives in Seattle. So she's not here in Denver with us. So it's in this part of my family,
Yeah.
I'm definitely the black sheep and the one causing the pain. And I hate that. And I don't know how to balance that with that thing inside me. And it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
I so
deeply
get.
painful.
Yeah. I mean, as a human being, an animal being on this planet, the worst thing, the biggest fear that we have is to be isolated, to be the one that is cast out, to be the one that doesn't belong into the group. It's survival, it's emotional, like it's physical safety danger and it's emotional safety danger, right? So I totally get how painful that is for you to be the one that causes conflict in the family, to be the one that is so different than the family, and to be the one that is learning how to work with your own system, and you're at this place of knowing that, hey, if it's not 100% in alignment, I can't go forward because it causes internal conflict for you. So so damn if you do and damn if you don't, kind of thing. And no one thank you for taking a stand. No one is curious of why you take a stand. They're only listening just enough so that they can tell you that you're wrong. Right? And so you're invalidated and unseen and unappreciated for what you deeply, carefully study and come to your own conclusion of whatever it is, that however you see it.
Thank you for seeing me, is what I can
Yeah.
say. and hearing me and being here with me and accepting me in this place of conflict, this
Yeah.
place of juxtaposition, and how do we navigate this thing? I mean, what is I think if we break it down to the basic belief, but then this gets messy too. So I'll preface it with that. If we break it down to basic beliefs, if you believe the sky is purple, you believe the sky is purple, and I can't change your mind no matter what I say or do.
Yeah.
And I don't have to even know why. Here's the part that gets sticky for me with my family in particular. They want to know the why I believe a certain way. And the fact is, it doesn't matter why you believe the sky is purple or I believe what I believe, because it's my belief. It's what feels right in my system. And that's where I get super caught up. It's like, I don't have to explain my belief. It's just what's so. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think the differentiation comes from people who are living in their head and people who are living or doing their best to live more and more in alignment. And I think there's a conflict with that.
Yeah. It's what you're saying sounds so simple to accept, and then it's so complex. It's so, because when I'm listening to you, what flash up is stories of cult after cult, people who enter a cult and they believe what they believe, and they found nirvana. Hey, that's the thing. They found nirvana and happiness. And at some point in that journey, what they found is so much better than what regular people live every day. So what's wrong with that, right? But then somehow, cult after cult, at the end of the story, it always end up in tragedy because there's some truth that comes out. And at some during the journey of us discovering and you discovering and believe what you believe, me believe what we're happy. And we discover something, a new world that makes you really, you feel love, you access so much more, you see the possibility of humankind and all that stuff. And then later on, these cults that had happened, they end up discovering that, oh, it's been manipulated in the back. And I'm not saying that on the outside world it's not being manipulated either, right? So that's what's so crazy about this whole conversation. And that's why I think there's a middle ground here, is that both worlds are being manipulated.
Yes.
Both worlds have consequences. Both worlds have terrible consequences. And so it's hard. It's hard for the family, we'll call it the family of the cult people on the outside going, come back, you're down the wrong road. No, I'm not. I'm happy. See, I'm really happy here. Leave me alone. And then later on, they end up drinking poison or whatever, or they escape out of there and go back and going, wow, that was a cult. I didn't realize that. I don't know. I hope. So that's where it gets complex.
It does. It really does. And the point that you made, that there's manipulation everywhere, is a point that we can both absolutely agree upon. And that's why I said the only thing that I have in this quagmire of we don't know what's true and what's not is that innermost alignment. And that's where I find my biggest angst, because with misinformation and true information all mixed up in here and there and everywhere, we don't know what's true. Or do
To a
we?
certain point.
Do we? Like, how do we know? I mean, we have people from very prestigious medical institutions speaking on both sides. You know, I've heard people from Mayo Clinic talk one way, and I've heard other people from Mayo Clinic talk exactly the opposite way around what this vaccine is and what we need to do. So I've heard both sides from the exact same reputable institution. So with that, how do I know what's true for me?
Well, I would love to see that. Actually, I would love to see both sides that you have discovered, so that way I can educate myself on that. Um, and and I think you and I have been starting to do this in the background before we bring it. And I would like to like bring that to the conversation in the future. You know, I'd love to see what you've been watching and what I've been watching. I love to like talk about it, to dissect it in these conversations so that we can find our truth rather than what's being fed to us. That would be really awesome to do in future episodes. Uh, for now, I I I I I saw a different possibility just now, and it really moved me when you were talking about how you're standing there unvaccinated, right? Technically, from our perspective, it would mean you are not protected. You are unvaccinated. That would mean you're not protected. And right now, the current anger and frustration, and really, really big anger, is that, and I think there's a belief here that people who are unvaccinated continue to pass on the virus. From that perspective, then the people who are unvaccinated are seen as selfish, evil, continue this pandemic, stupid, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the judgment is amazing.
Huge. Yeah.
And what I just saw deep somewhere inside me was this other possibility. I'm afraid to even say it because I can just hear the public going, that's stupid. But what happened if those who choose to be vaccinated stand around those who choose not to be vaccinated and love them and protect them and help them stay safe?
Well,
Is
that's
that a possibility in the world, you know?
It's a bold and beautiful statement, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm deeply touched.
That's really scary to say that because I'm like, well, what does that mean? Am I just full of shit? Am I just stupid? I don't understand science. We have to wipe you people out in order for us to be safe. That's what it feels like. If we distill it down to it, it's like, you're the problem. You're the one that keep listening to these things. You won't listen to facts. I'm just general, all these things that, you know, like has been clogged inside me, right? And all it does is it's just create more conspiracy, more separation, more, and then it makes both sides more stubborn in our point of view.
And there's the piece that you didn't mention about people who have been vaccinated that get exposed to the virus and are now transmitting it with no signs. So that really puts me more at risk. And those of us that are not vaccinated, because they're carrying the virus and don't even know it because they feel fine.
Well, everyone is carrying the virus and we don't know it.
Right.
Right? Supposedly, because of your strong immune system, you may be carrying it, but you're not sick by it because your system can fight it. So I don't know if you're carrying it.
True.
Supposedly, because I'm vaccinated, I'm stronger. So I can carry it, but I don't even get sick by it because so neither one of us know. So
True.
I think that's underneath here is we don't know, and it's fearful and it's scary. And so when we are afraid and it's fearful, we need to find someone to blame to make us feel better. We want an an answer to why this is happening, and there is no answer. That's the paradox that we are living in this world. So I think maybe if we both dial back a little bit and find a different ways of, I don't know. I know that when I'm on these conversation with you, I can kind of see the emergence of the middle ground, and I can access this part of acceptance. And I know that when I hang up from this, I think about it and I'm like, no, I missed that point. No, I should have gotten it then. Get that point. And that whole thing goes off in my head. And I'm just kind of like, well, am I just too chicken to say it on the call? So that's why I'm not saying it? Or am I just, like there's a real conundrum. And then I read the comment like, well, she's full of shit. She's not understanding data and all that stuff. And I'm like, I know that way of talking is not going to be helpful at all. But there's just a natural reaction that wants to get in and fight instead of want to get in and hold the middle ground and see that there is some stuff here that we can use, that we can create something better with each other.
Well, I'm appreciative of the stand that you're taking for that and your skill, both, because I don't feel quite as skillful in the middle ground as what you're demonstrating. So
I'm not skillful. I don't feel skillful at all. That's why I keep speaking out my process, because it's really weird. It's kind of like I'm here and I feel really good because I'm committed to finding the middle ground. But the minute I let go of this conversation and I go on to my own brain, I'm so committed to being right. And but I'm also committed to looking for the middle ground. So that's why I'm having ping-ponging conversations in my head. And anyway, enough for today. Thank you for sharing your pain of what it's like to be you and what's it like to be me in this world. It is painful. It's fearful and it's painful. It's painful that I feel like we can't seem to get up. We can't seem to convince the other person, no matter how much data we have. I think that's one pain that we both experience. Like, I'm sure you have a whole, list of things that I could watch that should convince me, whatever. And then you, the same for me. So that's painful. And then it's painful to feel isolated and to be so confused in how we should be around each other because of this. And the constant fear that you have to carry, our fear get projected onto you for being unvaccinated. That's painful for you. And then you're carrying our fear. You're carrying a pain for us. You're like going, something's wrong here with the medical industry. You guys should pay attention. And we're like, la, la, la. I don't see it. I think it's fine. Can I have a booster shot? And you guys are like, no, it's going to kill you. And we're like, no, it's not. Look, it's actually making me stronger. So that's really super painful. It's like crazy. What other pain? Family isolation.
yeah, family isolation and the basic pain of people that have actually lost their life due to this. We haven't even addressed that.
Less. So people who actually lost their life from this.
Yeah.
How do you guys reconcile that? How do you understand that?
How do I understand that? That's I mean, my data is different than your data, is what I can
Right.
say.
That's why I asked, how do you understand that? Because I know from us, it's like, well, how many people now? 700,000? I don't know. I forget. Anyway, died because one, they didn't get vaccinated early enough, or we didn't have the vaccine, and or they choose not to be vaccinated. So that's
And they're the
kind of like the bottom line.
Then there's the underlying conditions and the false documentation where they say, you know, they've told the doctors to write everything up as a COVID death, even if they had a heart attack or got in a car accident or, you know, all kinds of other things. And whether that's true or not, again, it's questionable. So people have lost lives, and losing lives is scary. And we have the vaccine that's causing people to have side effects that are never ending, or apparently never ending. We don't know yet because it's too new to see. And that's something that's not talked about much, but certainly a pain for those that are affected, and a fear for those who don't want to go down that road.
Right. The side effects. We don't. What are the side effects?
Well, it
that you're
depends.
afraid of?
It depends who and where. I mean, I don't feel super fearful.
No, wait.
Personally,
I think what's important about these conversations is we have to finish through a thought. So if you
okay.
put out, there are side effects that people have to
Yes.
suffer for a lifetime from this vaccine. What are they?
So we've seen people that have like this shaky kind of thing where they can hardly walk and move, and they're doing this barely, like all kinds of. I've seen numerous.
How
people,
many people have developed that?
I don't know the exact numbers. I am not good with keeping track of the data. Honestly, that is not my forte. So I'll read things and I'll make an opinion, and that's what I store, not the data. So I'm not the best person for that. I'll be completely frank and honest about that.
Well, that's actually a me too, and that's actually a dangerous thing because I have seen one of those video of this woman sitting there shaking and talking. I saw that. Now, how that's one person. I don't know if it's real or if it's made up also, but it's very memorable. As you can see, I recall that, right? It's very memorable. So somebody who could generate conspiracy theory, which there are people who are generating conspiracy theory that are unreal, say that, put it out there, and then you go and repeat that, and now we think hundreds of thousands of people are having the shake, but there's maybe one or none. So that's why I'm asking.
And maybe there's dozens or hundreds. I don't know.
Are there? Well, see, that's the thing. I don't know if that's true, but that's what's being passed on. Well, and that is dangerous.
It is. I'm in agreement with you on that. And the other one that I'm hearing that's a scary side effect is particularly for young men, where it's affecting their hearts and they're having heart attacks. And so many of them are dying. So who knows?
Again, how many people have we vaccinated out there? And how many people have? Is it 100 out of a few millions? And what? So right with medical and with
for sure
with stuff like this, it's the ratio that counts. And yes, you know, sometimes 6 people out of millions and millions is a lot of people. We need to stop and look at this. Absolutely. But again, it's one of those things where what I see is people who are afraid of the vaccine are saying in general terms, I'm afraid of the side effects, or and then I'm like, well, wait a minute. How is that taken in relation to the whole world being vaccinated? And is that really a big thing, or is that unique to that body and that reaction? So I'm kind of like, well, again, living in a world that 60% truth is truth. So that's where you and I differ.
Well,
And,
I totally hear and respect that. And I'm with you. And I also know my body. I'm like the canary in the mine. And so if there's mold someplace, I smell it and maybe nobody else in the room does. And so I have a sensitive system. And so is this something that's actually in alignment for me? What if that ends up being me and everyone else told me you should do that? Then what?
right.
You know, and I'm not really scared of those things. More is I'm still in question. I haven't gotten that clear yes in my system. It's not from a fear place, it's more like an I don't know place.
Yep.
And I'd be happy to admit if I was really fearful and feeling scared about things, but I'm not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know that one of the frustration out there to that answer is, well, what do you need to see to feel like you know? And are you willing to see the data, or are you going to continue to debut it? Like,
I might.
right? So
And I might.
that's the thing, like,
I might.
back to your original thing. But if I choose to believe that the sky is purple, that's my right. So then it's kind of like, well, if you choose to keep walking down that path and the sky is not purple, but you think that you believe it's purple and it makes you happier that it's purple, well, you live in an alternate world, not in this world that we all live in. So that's actually true too. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, how do we make rules? How do we govern a society when there are a lot of people who want to live in an alternative world? So that's a complicated way. And
It is. And what if it's not that we want people to live or people want to live in an alternate reality, but they simply do? And what if, because there's almost 8 billion people on the planet, there's 8 billion alternate realities? And maybe some of them meet and there are common beliefs, but what if we're really living in our own unique realities? And
well,
how
I
do we get
totally respect that, right? We all each living, and I like that point. We do all live in the alternate, our own reality. And at some point, as a society, as a country, as a government, you do have to make rules. You do have to. And as I compare our government to other governments in this world who deal with this pandemic, we are nowhere near taking away people's liberty. I know there's much more uh, evidence, real evidence, truthful. You can go, if you don't like, get on a plane and go there and see how for yourself.
Well,
And
you probably can't get into Australia because of the restrictions that they have there.
well, they actually just opened up
Well, they did. Okay.
for the US to travel. But like I said, I study Vietnam because I am Vietnamese and I do have a lot of friends that live in Vietnam or that live here, all the stuff. And dude, what they have to go through to wipe out this last round of pandemic was rough, really rough. Like, we are nowhere near that. And for us to stand up and say, you're taking my liberty away, I disagree with that. I completely disagree. That is really us going cuckoo in our head.
Well, maybe you need to share a little more with me so that I'm not as cuckoo in my head. I don't know.
I hope not. Friends, don't let friends go cuckoo. You can have your alternate reality, but I have to say, no, darling. You want to know what liberty being taken away look like? Let me show you. Let's go to like Nicaragua. Let's go to China. Let's go to really places like that. Then you'll go, oh yeah, no, this is great. I like it. I'll put on a mask now. Thank you. Anyway, enough for today. Thank you so much for going for another ride with me on this one. So for the next one, let's talk about, let's look at some of those articles that we've been sharing with each other. uh, the one that I share with you, The Guardian, about how the conspiracy really hit the wholeness industry. That to me was such a, like, yeah, I totally see that happening. So I would love to talk about that with you. How about you? What would you like to talk about? I would love to dissect some video or something that you've been sharing with me too.
Well, let me figure out which one.
Okay.
I would like to, I would like to do a little bit of research. I don't have a ton of time right now to do a lot of that. So I want to review the one that you sent. And if I can find the 2 opposing Mayo Clinic ones, I would like to do that.
Okay,
But
that
I
would be
don't know
great.
for sure if I can find it. So that'll be
Okay.
my homework for this week.
Let's see what Rainbow wrote. Hi, Rainbow. Rainbow is actually very similar to you. She has not been vaccinated, but she just recently got vaccinated. So let's see. I felt like her too, around being extra sensitive and wanting to get my clear yes without pressure from others, especially since I kept my exposure level alert low. The thing that got me finally to get vaccinated was to see more scientific research, have trusted science and medical friends debunk the anti-vax argument, and really look at the extensive data ratio compared to the few stories of side effects of friends and friends of friends that are louder in my ears. I already had to look at my rebel part that doesn't rebel for a cause. And also had to look at, I guess she's not done writing. But anyway, thank you, Rainbow, for sharing. Rainbow was very much like you. Her family isolated her. Her family was very angry with her for not getting vaccinated. And she uh, didn't feel right. And so but finally, I don't know what pushed her over, but she did get vaccinated, and then I think she got a little sick on the second round, but the first round was okay, and she lives to tell the story continue. It's not easy, so I I honor both sides. And enough for today. I have to run to another meeting.
Me
I
too.
thank you so much for being here with me, and Rainbow for jumping in and sharing your experience with us. No major side effects. Live to tell indeed.
Yay.
Oh yay. And she has a sensitive system. Very sensitive system actually. Anyway, to be continued. I'll see you next week. Same time, same bat channel. Thank you everyone for watching and for sharing and commenting. I really appreciate you getting into this middle ground with us. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.